Tonight, when it gets dark, you'll probably reach for your phone. The screen will light up. You won't think about it at all. But for 99.9% of human history, there was no screen, no light switch, no bulb. When the sun went down, the world simply went dark. Total darkness. The kind where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. And your ancestors didn't experience that for one bad camping trip. They experienced it every single night, for hundreds of thousands of years. So what did they actually do with all those hours? The answer rewrites almost everything you think you know about sleep, storytelling, and what it means to be human. Let's start with fire, because none of this works without it. The earliest solid evidence of controlled fire comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, roughly 1 million years ago. But fire didn't just keep people warm, it restructured the entire human day. Before fire, our ancestors lived like every other primate on the savannah. When the sun set, you found shelter and you stayed still. Moving at night meant becoming dinner. Human eyes are genuinely bad in the dark, far worse than the predators hunting us. Leopards, hyenas, wolves, all of them could see perfectly fine after sunset. We couldn't. Fire changed that equation overnight. Literally. A fire creates a rough 30-foot circle of safety. Inside that circle, predators stay away. Outside it, you're prey again. This isn't an exaggeration. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have documented that people who wander from the fire at night are still significantly more likely to be killed by predators today. But fire gave humans something even more valuable than protection. It gave them extra hours. Before fire, the usable day ended at sunset. Maybe 12 hours in summer, as few as 8 in winter. Fire added 2 to 4 extra hours to every single day. And across thousands of generations, those extra hours quietly reshaped our entire species. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a study that's almost never talked about, and probably should be. She spent years recording actual conversations among the Juhowansi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups on Earth still living close to how humans lived for most of our history. During the day, about 80% of their conversations were practical. Daytime talk was work. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. 81% of nighttime conversation was stories. Tales about people in distant places, adventures, myths about how the world began, jokes that made the whole camp laugh. Wiesner's argument is genuinely wild when you sit with it. Firelight conversation might be where human culture was born. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. It's where humans first learned to think beyond the immediate moment and imagine things that didn't exist yet. It might be where we actually became us. But storytelling wasn't the only thing happening at night. Something scientists only rediscovered in the last 30 years. And it has to do with how you sleep. Or rather, how you used to sleep before all of this started. In 2001, historian Roger Ekirch published a paper that quietly changed sleep science. He spent 16 years digging through historical records. And he found something nobody expected. Over 500 separate references, spanning centuries. Prayer books from the 1400s, court records, diaries, even passages in Homer's Odyssey. All of them mentioned the exact same thing. First sleep and second sleep. Before the industrial age, people didn't sleep in one continuous block. They went to bed shortly after sunset, slept around 4 hours, then woke up. They stayed awake, quietly, for 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night. Then they went back to sleep for another 4 hours, until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This was completely normal. This was how nearly every human on the planet slept for thousands of years. So what did people actually do during that quiet, wakeful window in the middle of the night? A 16th century French physician recommended couples conceive children during this exact window, claiming it produced better results. People visited neighbors. They interpreted dreams while the dreams were still fresh. They wrote, they thought, they simply lay in the dark. A doctor's manual from the 1500s advised that the best time for study and reflection was during what they called the watch, the quiet hours between first and second sleep, when the mind was calm and the world outside was completely silent. Historians had actually been reading these references for centuries, but they kept mistranslating first sleep into something else entirely. Because the idea that people once slept in 2 separate phases seemed too strange to be literal. The assumption ran so deep that scholars adjusted ancient Greek and medieval Latin texts to match modern sleep patterns. Then science caught up with what history had been saying the whole time. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran an experiment. He took a group of volunteers and removed every source of artificial light from their lives. For 1 month, they experienced 14 hours of darkness every single night, roughly what our ancestors lived with before fire extended the evening. Within weeks, every single participant settled into the exact same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody told them to do this. Nobody suggested it. Their bodies simply did it, as if some ancient program had been sitting dormant the entire time, buried under centuries of artificial light. Ware measured hormone levels during that wakeful window and found something remarkable. Participants weren't just lying awake. They were in a distinct state of consciousness. Elevated prolactin, the same hormone released during meditation and after orgasm. They described the state as peaceful, reflective. It wasn't a gap in sleep, it was its own separate state of mind, one that most modern humans have simply never experienced. So what killed it? The answer is simpler than you'd expect: light. In the 1600s, cities began installing street lamps. Paris was one of the first, under Louis XIV, who wanted to reduce nighttime crime. London followed shortly after. The night, which had been a place of genuine danger for the entirety of human history, slowly became navigable. Then cheaper candles arrived, then gas lamps in the 1800s. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. And within a single generation, the night that humans had known for 300,000 years was simply gone. Here's a detail almost nobody knows. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu. It literally means cover fire. In medieval towns, a bell rang at night signaling everyone to cover or extinguish their fires. Not for safety reasons, because night was supposed to be dark. For most of history, simply being outside after dark was suspicious. In many medieval European cities, walking outside without a lantern after sunset was literally illegal. Night belonged to criminals, to the supernatural, to everything people couldn't fully explain. People feared it in a way that's almost impossible for us to genuinely understand today. And then, we conquered it. We flooded it with light, and we called that progress. But here's what we lost in the process. Modern humans are exposed to artificial light for an average of 7 to 8 hours after sunset. That light, especially the blue light from screens, suppresses your body's production of melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep cycle. Your body genuinely cannot tell the difference between a light bulb and the sun. When light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain interprets it as daytime. It delays melatonin release. It fragments your sleep. It disrupts a circadian rhythm that took millions of years to evolve. Researchers have found that people who go camping for just 1 week with zero artificial light have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 hours. Their bodies start producing melatonin at sunset instead of hours after it. That's all it takes. 1 week, and 300,000 years of programming reasserts itself completely. We didn't just change when we sleep, we eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. That quiet, reflective state between first and second sleep, the one Vare's subjects described as peaceful and meditative, doesn't really exist for most people anymore. Instead, we have insomnia, and we treat it like a malfunction. But what if it isn't? What if waking up at 2 a.m. and lying there in the dark isn't your body breaking down? What if it's your body remembering exactly what it was built to do? For 300,000 years, your ancestors spent their nights in a rhythm that modern science only started understanding a few decades ago. They gathered around fires and told the stories that quietly built entire civilizations. They slept in 2 distinct phases, with a window of quiet reflection sitting in between. They lived under a darkness so complete that the Milky Way wasn't something you drove to a national park to see. It was simply the sky, every single night. And in that quiet hour between first and second sleep, they lay there and thought about their lives, their dreams, and the world waiting for them at dawn. We traded all of that for a light switch, and most of us never even noticed it was gone. All sources are linked in the description. What's the longest you've gone without any artificial light at all? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. Subscribe to Science, where complicated things get explained simply.